Hi, I want to thank you for checking out the Anchor Church podcast. If you haven't already, we would love for you to download the Anchor Church app. It's a great way to stay connected, view any of our upcoming events, or view any of our past messages. If this is your first time, we would love to get connected with you and have you fill out a digital connect card by clicking the connect button below this video. If this message has impacted you in any way, we would invite you to partner with us financially by clicking the give button below this video as well. We hope you enjoy this message.
Cold morning. Who did not want to get out of bed this morning? Tell the truth. That's all right. That's all right. It was real cold, and snow started falling, and there's people with like power out on Alexis Road and all kinds of stuff. So thank you for being here this morning. Scott, our keyboard player, he had some stuff for our new building. He's like, if we have church, and I said, we are having church tomorrow. It's our last Sunday in Southview. He's like, what did I do? But I am excited. Thank you for being here with us this morning. This is our last Sunday in Southview. And I know that kind of sad, but yeah, it's exciting, right? I shared last week, it's just been such a blessing to be here, and we are so grateful for the school, and we're grateful for this place that God gave us. We're feeding the faculty this week on Tuesday, so we have a few students sneak into the teacher's lounge. There'll be Chick-fil-A mini biscuits in there, or mini sandwiches in there. The kids are like, for real, we're sneaking in. But we are going to feed the staff this week. We've done it on a regular basis since we've been here, and we're going to continue to do it even after we leave. It's just an awesome way just to bless the school and just to say thank you. I know we have a few teachers in our community, and man, that is a hard job. I do not want your job at all. So I tell my kids' teachers every time I go in, I say, I'm praying for you. Because I got a kindergartner, a first grader, and I imagine having 20 first graders running around. That's stressful. Some of you parents understand what I'm saying. And it would be chaos if I was a first grade teacher. But so we're going to bless the school, and we're really excited. So next Sunday, we will be in our new home right down the road. So if you keep going down Sylvania Avenue on the corner of McCord and Sylvania, that is where we're going to be. It used to be Advent Lutheran Church, and it is now going to be the home of Anchor Church. And we're really excited. Anybody else excited for next week? Yeah. Make sure you're inviting some people. There are invite cards out there. We actually it's cool. They have the old Advent Lutheran Church sign, and we got signs printed to put over top of it. I haven't totally asked for permission, but we're going to do it until we get told not to. And we're going to have Anchor Church, like a sign right on the corner of McCord and Sylvania, which is super cool. So we're really excited. We're excited to be in a space and be able to set up and make it a home. And we can have, gatherings there and worship nights and meetings. And, when we do team nights and do worship, we can actually be in our space. So it's a blessing. Be inviting people out. It's going to be an awesome morning. I just believe God gave me a really good word for that first Sunday there. And then we're starting a new series the following week. But I'm really excited. So next week, down on the corner, McCord and Sylvania, we will be in there and we'll be ready to go. We will have coffee. Maybe I'll even get donuts that morning. I don't know. It's going to be a good morning. Everyone's like, donuts? We haven't had donuts in a while. My kids were running around last week saying, Dad, where are the donuts at? We were on a run of donuts for a while, so we need to get back on the donut train around here. And anybody else enjoy Krispy Kreme this week? Yeah. I was like, I'm going to Krispy Kreme. And I went the day that it opened. The line was all the way down to the highway. People were going bananas over some Krispy Kreme. But if you ever go right now and it's busy, a quick hack, if you order through the app, your donuts will be ready in like a minute. So I pulled into the pancake house, walked over, got them hot and ready glazed donuts. Delicious. And Krispy Kreme donuts are good. I had to work out extra because I ate way too many. But I want to get right into the message today because I am excited about this morning. This is our last day here, and we're going to worship and kind of pray our way out of here today and just have a good morning of worship and celebration. But I do have a word. If you have your Bibles, turn to the book of Proverbs and Proverbs chapter 3, the book of wisdom, right? Solomon, God said, I'm going to give you any gift you want. You can have anything. And Solomon said, give me wisdom. Solomon wanted all the wisdom, and so God gave him the gift of wisdom. And out of his wisdom, he became one of the wealthiest men in the world. The Egyptian queens and kings would actually come to Solomon because of his wisdom. And so he wrote the book of Proverbs, wrote down all of these wise sayings. Anybody ever read through the book of Proverbs, like a proverb a day, or want to go through it? There are some good things in there. Young people, there's a lot about keeping your mouth shut. Husbands as well, right? Like there's some good things in there, learning to be silent and wise. And so Solomon writes the book of Proverbs, and it is such a good tool for us today, something good, quick to read. If you were like me in high school, for our young people, and you say, man, reading the Bible is hard, I fall asleep, I get bored, read Proverbs. There's good stuff in there. Just read one a day and move through. I know I'm a pastor, and I'm talking about how I thought the Bible was boring as a kid, but I have ADHD, and I was thinking about 50 things at once. And so read a proverb, read one, even young, old, whatever age you are. There are some good nuggets in there. But today we're going to be in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. This is what Solomon says. He says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. The title of my sermon today is Learning to Trust. Learning to have faith, learning to trust. See, I think we're growing up in a time where we think we trust, but we're actually a very skeptical people. And so we've become so skeptical that I would say we have to learn the art of trusting. When I was younger, I love that the snow finally happened. I was a hillbilly running around in the street the other night, taking pictures because I was so excited there was snow. Barefoot in the street, some truck came coming down my road, and he probably thought I was some crazy person at midnight running around out in the snow. But I was so excited because I love the snow. I was excited for it to happen. But growing up, my parents have 8 acres that butt into a state park, so we had infinite fun. And there were no cops, so there were no Sylvania police showing up. We would just catch things on fire for a good time. Me and my buddy, we spent a whole summer building a skateboard ramp, a half pipe, if you know what that is. And so we skated on it and then realized, man, we built this really bad. So we had don't do what I say, not as I do. So we had the great idea, let's catch the half pipe on fire, right? And skateboard on it because it will look awesome on video. And we caught it on fire, and his mom freaked out. His stepdad was a cop, and came running out, and it was awesome and horrible all at the same time. We were idiots. But so I grew up in the country, and so growing up in the country, we had four-wheelers. Anybody like riding four-wheelers? Yeah, and anybody have younger brothers? No? Okay, or younger sister. As an older brother, I took it upon myself that I would have lots of fun with my younger brother. And so growing up, we would play soccer and we would wrestle and do all kinds of things. I love them even to this day. But I would always convince my brother. I wanted to see how far I could push him on almost anything. So when we got four-wheelers, we said, this is cool, but then you get bored of just driving around in a four-wheeler. So as an older brother, I told my younger brother, let's get a saucer sled out. Let's hook a rope to the back. And here's the best idea ever. I'm going to whip you around the backyard until I can throw you off. As the guy on the four-wheeler, that's a great plan. As the youngster on the saucer sled that weighs 80 pounds wet, that's also a great plan. So I got him on the back, and we would whip around the backyard, and I'd fling him off, and I'd be laughing. And you ever, as an older brother, get to that point where your younger sibling starts crying, and you know if he really starts crying, I'm in trouble, so I'm going to go and console you. And I'd be like, oh, it's okay, man, it looked awesome. And you'd start you looked so cool flying through the air. And he's like, yeah, I did look cool. And then he gets back on the sled because because I didn't want to get in trouble. And so we would whip around the backyard, and my mom would have a heart attack. And then finally we got bored doing that. So we said, we need to take this to the next level. And so we made some ramps in the backyard, and I'd fly around, and we got bored with that because, we're in the country. There ain't nothing to do. And so I said, we're taking it to the next level. Don't worry, I didn't light anything on fire if you think that's where I'm going with this. We have huge ditches and a gravel driveway. So I said, Jake, you get on the back of the sled, and we're going to hit the ditch, and we're going to fling out. And he's like, oh, he's like real nervous. And I'm like, as a good big brother, convincing him this is a great idea. Like, dude, it is going to be epic, right? And parents with young kids, you need to talk to your older kids because they will convince the younger kids to do dumb stuff. And so I'm like, dude, it is going to be so sweet. And I'm like, I'll give you fair warning when we're going to come out of the ditch, right? I'm like, I'll take care of you. In my head, I'm like, I'm not telling you nothing. And so I got on the four-wheeler, and I'm flying. And he's like, we're having fun. And all of a sudden, I hit the edge of our driveway, and my brother goes like 20 feet in the air. Let's go. And I'm like laughing my head off, but then all of a sudden I realize I'm going to break my little brother. And so I start panicking. Thank God it had just snowed a bunch, and he hits this big pile of snow that wasn't frozen yet, because he for sure should have shattered his life. And he got up, and he was so mad. He's like, you told me you were going to tell me. And I go, I know, but it was awesome watching you fly through the air. And let me tell you what happened after this whole incident. I'm not just telling a story because I love to mess with my little brother. Anytime we got on a four-wheeler, probably today, if we got on a four-wheeler, that man would not trust a word that I said. I had instilled doubt in his heart. And so even if I was like, Jake, I promise I'm not going to, he'd be like, you're a liar. You just want to hurt me. And I'd be like, no, I love you so much. He never trusted me again on a four-wheeler, ever. Now that we're full grown, my brother's done dumb stuff on his own in the snow. Like he built a snow ramp around my parents' minivan and was jumping over on a snowboard. Like this is the stuff that I did as a kid. But as a kid, he never would trust me. Anybody like scaring people? Like scaring is your jam? I love watching like Ellen. She's the queen of scaring, right, on TV. People will go on her show like with anxiety, ready for someone to jump out and scare them, right? Like they're like looking around like, what's going to happen? This is how my brother was. And here's why I'm telling this story. Because I think we're growing up in a time where we don't know how to trust. We don't have faith. And so we're like people. We're like my little brother on the back of the four-wheeler. We're like people going on to Ellen's show, and you're looking for what's going to go wrong. And I think we've become so consumed with looking for what's wrong, filled with doubt, that it is literally crippling our lives. It's literally ruining us. I mean, if you go on the internet, I just had a conversation with my grandfather the other day, and he pulled up an ad on his phone that he saw on a weather app, and they're like, you ever seen those location tracking ads where it's not real, they're just looking at where your location is and making stuff up? He's like, Brent, be careful. They're pulling every single person over in Akron and asking them for their ID. And I'm like, Grandpa, they're not pulling every single person over in the city of Akron asking for their driver's license. And he's like, but it's on the phone, right? People have made money. There is literally a market for lying to people through fake ads. You literally can make money on YouTube coming up with clever clickbait things. There is a whole art to this craft. And as we were doing anchor stuff and I've gotten more into the marketing side of things and looking at things, it is crazy the lengths people go to just to get clicks on the internet. And so how, if this is the world we're growing up in, how do we learn to trust in a way? That's God telling you pay attention, and or a light bulb going out, and that is weird, and we should just pray right now. But how do we live in a time? How do we have faith in a way in an age of skepticism? Hey, Whitney, can we just black the light so that it doesn't flicker anymore? How do we live? It's going to get dark in here, sorry. But real dark in here. How do we live in an age, a time? How do we have faith when there's so much skepticism in our life? See, I think it's more than just an era. I think there is something broken within us. Think all the way back to Genesis in the first chapter. What causes Adam and Eve to eat from the tree? They don't believe God is who he says he is. They doubt God's direction. Or if you look in the book of Exodus, we just talked about this, and as Israel is exiting Egypt, they've just been, the Red Sea's been parted, and they've been saved out of slavery. And when Moses goes up onto Mount Sinai, what do? Immediately? They start worshiping other gods because they don't fully trust God for who he is. There is something in our humanity. There is something broken within us. We struggle with this idea of trust. And so when Solomon sits down and he begins to pen the book of wisdom, I don't think it's by accident that he starts by talking about this idea of trust, because Solomon understands trust and faith is the source of everything in our lives. He understands the importance of trust. And so how do we learn to trust? How do we learn to live this life? See, I believe by learning to trust, not only will you have inner peace, but it will have life-changing implications on your soul. You wonder why you're tormented. You wonder why you're crippled by anxiety. You wonder why you have doubt or you worry about everything. And I believe it all stems from a lack of trust. See, our souls need something to hold on to. Our souls need something to cling to. You can call it faith, you can call it trust, you can call it whatever you want. It's all the same. Our souls desire an anchor. Our souls were designed to need something to hold on to. And if you live with doubt, it is maddening. My 7-year-old is in this season, Logan. I try not to talk about my kids all the time. It's my life, and that's what I live right now. He's in this season where he hates to be doubted. He will literally get angry if he thinks people don't believe him, because there is something in his soul that so desires to be trusted, to be believed, and when there is any doubt, he becomes angry. He doesn't like the idea of doubt or distrust, because even as a child, even as a 7-year-old boy, he understands the torment of doubt. And so Solomon understands this, and he understands that there's no health to living under the yoke of doubt. And so when Solomon writes in Proverbs 3, he says, trust the Lord with all of your heart. Not 50%, not when you're on Sunday morning or when there's proof or you can see all the equations or pieces line up. He says, trust with all your heart. Leave no room for doubt in your heart. Doubt has a way of coming in and crippling our soul. It's like a virus that it just needs one little foothold. And I think it's the greatest weapon of the enemy. Is that if he can plant a seed of doubt in your soul, he can cripple your life. Some of you wonder why you wrestle with doubt, why your life is in such torment. It's because you're leaving room in your soul, in your heart, for that doubt. And so Solomon says, trust the Lord with all your heart. Don't depend on your own understanding. Trust him with everything you are. Give everything to him. Paul says it this way in the book of Hebrews, and it's actually where the name of our church came from. He says this about faith and salvation. He says, it is the hope, it is a stronghold and trustworthy anchor for our souls. That when you have faith, when you are devoted to something, when you say, there is no room left for doubt, God, I trust you because I know it is good for my soul. I know it is good for me to put my dependency on you, not on science, not on Facebook, not on politics or money or anything else. God, if I can put my dependency and my trust on you, there is no room for doubt. It's the anchor of our souls. See, Solomon understood that in order to live a life of peace, a life of wisdom, our souls needed an anchor, and it starts with trust. You can't have salvation without faith, and you can't have faith without trust. I want you to catch that because we wrestle with this and we wonder why we wrestle with our relationship with God and we doubt who he is. And you can't, it all stems from a place of trust. Our salvation comes out of faith. And our faith comes out of trust. See, learning to live in the fullness of God, learning to live in the fullness who God created you to be, starts with trust. And I said we're living in a time crippled by anxiety. People are literally over-medicating, and they're so crippled with depression and anxiety and worry that we come up with drugs. You watch the commercials on TV, and they're like, this will change your life, but let me give you 10 minutes of side effects. It could also ruin your life completely. And we think if I can find some tool, and listen, I'm not anti-taking like medicine if you need medicine, and I'm not anti-therapy, you guys know that. But we're so consumed with filling it with everything that we can control. Remember what Solomon says. He says, put your trust completely in God and do not lean on your own understanding. I think there is a point where we need help. But I think we also need to examine the place of our hearts. Why? Because we're so consumed with doubt. We live under this yoke of doubt, and it consumes our lives and begins to break us. I had this moment. I'm not a control freak. Anybody? I can't see y'all because it's pitch black in here now. But anybody a control freak? You don't even have to raise your hand if you're embarrassed, but I am. And I have figured out that I freak out when I feel like I'm out of control. And I have 2 children under the age of 10. I will walk into a room. Yesterday, Lauren was drinking some like kombucha, and my daughter got a hold of it, and it just went everywhere, right? She was like, hey, look, orange juice, whoosh, like all over the kitchen. And and what I've learned to do is I've learned to walk away from those situations, because what happens is in the past, I would walk in and be like, like freak out, right? Like, I gotta bring order to this. There's stuff everywhere. Because I don't like the craziness. My soul begins to go nuts. And when you have children, you are gonna live in the craziness all the time. All the time, stepping on Legos, weird things on the wall, like babies, don't even get me started. More weird stuff happened to me when my kids were babies than when they were older. But you live in the chaos all the time. And so as I was working through some of my issues, I sat down with the counselor that I meet with, and he said this. He said, I need to quit getting so upset. I need to quit getting so stressed when I'm in these situations. And I'm not perfect at it by any means. Like I said, it just happened yesterday, kombucha everywhere. And he said, "What the issue isn't the stress or you getting angry. The issue is when those situations happen, you feel a lack of control, and so you begin to try to control the chaos, and that just rises up anxiety within you." Here's the point: I think we're trying to control every aspect of our lives. We're trying to say, I can manage it with this. Or if I get this, I'll be able to manage it. Or if I can do this. Or if I get this job. Or if I have this schedule. And we've taken all these little pieces. And we've grabbed all these things. Or if I get this. Or whatever it is you think in your life you need to bring order to the chaos. And we are completely missing the one who created us. The one who breathed life into us. Young people, you walk through the halls of your school, this school, and you wonder why people are so depressed and they're so broken and they're so anxious. It's because they're filling their life with all the different wells around them and they're not getting to the living water of who God is. The living water that fulfills our soul. Though the only thing that will bring peace to the chaos of your life. God designed us to be dependent on Him. But when we choose to fill our life with everything, when we're filling it with the wrong things, we slowly deteriorate. It's like if I don't clean out my hot water tank, the buildup will begin to happen and my shower heads will get clogged and all the erosion will happen throughout my house. And we're filling our lives with everything else that we think will make us fulfilled, bring peace. We're putting our trust in relationships and money and jobs and college degrees or whatever it is in your life. And God is saying, I'm the living water. I am what will fulfill your soul because I'm the one who created you. Solomon understood this. He says in the following verses, Proverbs 3 verse 7. He says, don't be impressed with your own wisdom. Instead, fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Then you will have healing for your body and strength for your bones. What he's saying is when you learn to live a life of trust, when you remove doubt from your life, when you learn to live under the freedom and the joy of faith, it literally has physical implications on your life. It says you'll have healing for your body and strength for your bones. See, Solomon is warning us when we take control, we're literally stepping out of the will of God. When we begin to control our lives, we're literally stepping out of His place of grace. We're removing ourselves from the sanctuary of who He is. It's like when I take my kids to the park and I'm like, stay where I can see you. There's a reason I want to see where they're at. It's not a control thing, totally, kind of. But I tell them to stay where I can see them because if something goes wrong, I want to be able to get there to care for them. I want to be able to get to the place. If something is going to harm them, I want to be able to stop it. God is the same way. When we step out of the shadow, the sanctuary of His presence, and we say, I'm going to control my life. I'm going to put my trust in this, or I need this to fulfill me. We are stepping out of His shadow and saying, I don't need you. And God is saying, if you would stay in my presence, I will care for your soul. I will care for your life. And we wonder why nothing fulfills us. But we don't want to stay in His presence. We don't want to lean in to who He is. We don't want to lean in. And Solomon is warning us. He's warning us to stay in God's presence. See, when you realize your life and direction has nothing to do with your control, but your job is to walk in obedience and trust the steps of the one ahead of you, there is a joy and peace that follows. There's a joy that will come to your life. I know it to be true because I've walked it every time my life, the last couple weeks have just felt, if I can be completely honest, I know I'm supposed to be up here and encourage you guys and everything, God is so good, but the last couple weeks of my life have been nothing but chaos. This last week was like a train wreck. I just felt like I was just sitting in it. And every time I get in that place, I was sitting in worship this morning, and I just started to ask God, even as I was about to preach this sermon, like, God, what am I trying to control? What am I not trusting you with? God, why is my life seem so chaotic? Where am I not walking in faith? And what am I trying to control in my life? And I think whenever we're in that place, we forget to fall at the feet of the one who will bring the peace. And I think we're so consumed with control that we forget to trust. And we haven't learned to fully trust in who he is. See, learning to fully trust means sitting in a position of faith, even when it doesn't fit your agenda. And this is what I want you to catch from this. Learning to fully trust the fullness of who God is means sitting in a position of faith. It means releasing everything in your life and saying, God, nothing will fill me except for your presence right now. It means releasing everything that you think you need and trusting everything that who he is. See, I think quite often we fully desire God. We, in our hearts, we really want God. We want all of who he is, but we aren't ready to release everything. We aren't willing to lay down our lives. What did Jesus say? He said, lay down your life and follow me. Lay down everything and follow me, right? And so we don't lay it down, and we find ourselves in this destructive cycle. Look at the nation of Israel through the Old Testament. God is a loving father, and he doesn't abandon his children. But I think of all the dysfunction that happened because they would see who God is, and they would trust him. And then a little bit would go by, and they'd begin to doubt him. And so God would remove his hand. He'd say, you want control? It's all yours. And so they'd walk through some stuff, but then he'd step back in and say, but I still love you. And so it was this cycle that they found themselves in. Because they couldn't trust who he was. They couldn't release it. They couldn't find peace. I want to close with this story. It's not a personal story. It's from the Bible, Matthew 19. And a lot of times you hear this sermon and you hear this story and it's talked about, for money and finances. And I think this whole sermon plays completely into your finances. You wonder why you're in debt? You wonder why financially you're broken? It's because you're not trusting the source with your money. But I'm not preaching on money today. Don't worry. Everybody relax. I can't see you, but I imagine you're stressed right now. But I think this plays completely into it, but I don't think it's the point of the story. In Matthew 19, a young man comes to Jesus. Not out of, ill intent, but with good intent. He comes to Jesus. And he says, Jesus, what must I do to have eternal life? What must I do to... He believed Jesus was the Messiah. He believed who he said he was. He didn't doubt. He wasn't running around doubting who God said he was. He fully believed who God was. And he said, Jesus, how can I get eternal life? And so Jesus starts basic, and I believe he already knew the issue with this young man. But he says, follow the 10 Commandments. Follow what God laid out for you. And he said, I've done all of it. I think he was a little bit arrogant. He thought he was perfect, but he said, I've done all of those things. And Jesus says, okay. He doesn't argue with him. He doesn't teach him a lesson. He says, give up everything you have. Lay it all down and follow me. And what's interesting about this story is the young man was so quick to answer when it came to the commandments, right? He was so quick to answer when it came to the rules. But when it meant laying down everything that he controlled in his life, all of what he had placed his identity in, he doesn't even respond to Jesus. The book of Matthew says he stands up sorrowful, and he walks away, knowing that he couldn't do what Jesus was asking. And I wonder how often we get before the throne of the Lord and we're broken and we're hurting and we have questions and we don't understand things. And we fall before his feet and we say, Jesus, I need you to bring order. I need you to bring peace. I need to find fullness in my life. I need to know who you are. I know I need you. And Jesus says, give up control. If you want to know peace, cast your burdens upon me. Give up control of your life. Quit trying to manage everything. Quit filling your life with all the things that you think you need and all the tools and the pills that you think and I mean figuratively pills, all the quick fixes that you think will bring you peace and fullness, and lay it before me and put your trust fully in who I am. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. I wonder how many of us find ourselves at his feet, not ready to open our hands to the fullness of who he is. I know, even statistically in this room, half of this room struggles with anxiety. You want to begin to beat your anxiety, I'm not saying it's going to be fixed in a moment. Get before his feet. Put your trust in who he is. Quit trying to control every area of your lives. Quit trying to control everything and begin to trust who he is. And say, God, whatever portion you give me, it is good enough for me. God, whatever path you lead me down, it's good enough for me because I trust who you are. I trust the fullness of who you are. Get help if you still need help. But start at the source. Lean into his presence. Do as Solomon says. You want a long and healthy life. Don't be impressed with your own wisdom. Trust his. I'm telling you, I've walked it. I struggle with it. But there is a peace in just giving up control to the Lord. Some of you this morning, you've never known peace. You've never known the fullness of who he is, and you wonder why your life is just chaos over and over. And we're not trying, I can't even see anyone, so no one's trying to embarrass anyone this morning. But I don't want to let this moment pass by without offering you salvation, faith that comes from him. With every head bowed, I don't want anyone looking around. If you're in this room today, and you would say, I don't know peace. I'm like that rich young man asking God, how do I have salvation? How do I find eternal life? How do I live this life? And you need to just give it all up and trust him. If that's you this morning, if you would say, I want salvation, I want peace. I want to know who Jesus is fully. Just put your hand up and put it back down. I want to pray this morning. If you're in this room and maybe you know who Jesus is and you trust Jesus, you've given your life to him, but you wonder why you're stuck in a cycle of chaos. You're like how I've felt the last 2 weeks. You just feel like you're just getting run over by the train. Maybe it's been a year. Maybe it's been 5 years. Maybe it's just today. I don't know. And you say, I need to get out of this. And I know it starts with trust. I know it starts with leaning into his presence. If that's you, if you would say, I need peace in my life today. I need the fullness of who God is today. Don't leave this room without leaning into his presence, without getting to the source. If you would say, I need to get to the source this morning, if that's you, just put your hand up. Actually, if you want to just stand up, because I want to pray for you. If that's you, if you would say, I need to get to the source this morning. I can't even barely see you, but I want to pray for you. Stand up in your seat right now. I'm going to give you a minute. I'm standing with you. So I'm up here right now. I need peace. I need order. I need living water. I need fullness. I need trust. God, you see your children in this place. And God, your desire is for us to live in the fullness of who we were made to be, to know the fullness of who you are. And so God, right now, ask your Spirit just to begin to move through this room, whether people are standing or sitting or wherever they're at. God, I pray that a peace would just begin to flow through this place. God, that a peace would just begin to rest on the shoulders of your children, begin to flow from the head all the way down through their heart and out through their hands, God, that your presence would just be known in this place. God, the fullness of who you are. God, I pray that we would drink from the living water of who you are in this place. God, that we would release control over the things that we try to consume our lives with. And God, that we would fall into the presence of who you are in the name of Jesus. Just begin to worship. Just begin to invite that peace upon your life. Just begin to invite his presence in your own words, not me praying. Just begin to invite the fullness of who he is in the name of Jesus. If everyone just stand up right now, let's just begin to worship God this morning. Just begin to praise him for who he is. Just to invite his presence to rest upon our lives. I asked John to sing a song this morning. I told you guys what I've been going through, and I was late this morning because I sat in the parking lot of the school. And God just put this song on my heart. And man, I went to church before I even walked into the church. And this song, just like the lyrics of, it's called Surrounded. So if you want to get it ready on the computer. It's this idea of fully inviting the presence of God to surround our lives in the midst of whatever, but being engulfed with his presence of who he is, and feeling like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, and you might feel like I talked about, just beaten down. It says it may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. Of it being in the midst of the battle and feeling consumed with whatever you're going through. And feeling like you're going to be defeated by your situation. But knowing you have the ultimate shield standing in front of you. That no weapons or arrows or anything the enemy can throw you can penetrate the presence of who God is. So I asked John literally 5 seconds ago to sing this song. And let's just worship together for a few minutes this morning. Let's invite his presence to surround our lives.
It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded.
Let's just begin to sing that out.
It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you.